mean, you got to report it to me. I can only help you if you stand up and say I need help. And I like Gilberto said, sometimes that's hard. So if you need their help, that's fine. But eventually it's got to get to my ears that somebody did you wrong. And then it's up to me from that point to gather your help, gather your evidence and your information, go get the bad guy if I can. Things that once you've been victimized, there's some things you can do to hopefully minimize the damage. Oftentimes, first thing people want to know about is money. Are they going to get their money back? Are they going to get their property back? Well, there's usually a reason why most of these people steal the money, because they don't have any money, because they're gambling it, or they're using drugs, or whatnot. So, most of the time, unfortunately, when your money's taken, it's gone. There's those small few occasions where we can seize assets, but honestly, don't ever expect that to happen. The only thing you can really hope for in most of the cases is some sense of justice. But if you've been damaged and your identity's been compromised, definitely call those credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. You call one, they cross-report to the other. And there's different options. If you just feel like, hey, I've been the victim of identity theft, you can call one of them up and they'll put an automatic 90-day fraud alert on your account. And that's not foolproof, but what that'll do is that'll make any prospective lenders or credit card companies or anybody that's trying to tap into your credit history, that'll make them aware that there's some funny business going on, and the person whose name this is, may have been the victim of identity theft. And that'll be on your account for 90 days, all of them, all three of them. And then you can re-up it every 90 days after that. An alternative to that is a credit freeze. And the credit freeze is where it's like it sounds. You can't, if a lender, somebody wants your credit history, when they request it, it gets denied unless there's a release. So you'll have to be contacted, you'll have to provide a PIN, and then you'll have to authorize the release of that credit history. Usually if you report it to police, it's free. If you don't report it to police, it's going to cost you $10 per agency. So best thing to do is report it to police. So that's the credit bureaus. I know you mentioned the credit monitoring services. So, and I only know this pretty much maybe because I work, but when we had the Archdiocese IRS fraud a couple years ago, I was a victim of that as well. And it was a pain in the butt going through all these steps to protect myself. And I've told people for many years, hey, you just got to call it the credit bureaus, and hey, you just got to call it the IRS. Well, it's a lot easier than it sounds, I've learned. So, being a victim myself, and just calling up the credit bureaus was a pain. And they're going to try and offer you the credit monitoring. So each of the credit bureaus, the credit reporting bureaus, all offer their own credit monitoring, credit protection plans, and they vary in cost from like $10 a month, $30 a month. There's big companies like LifeLock, and what they're doing, they're just monitoring. They're looking for any activity where people are inquiring about your credit history, and then they're alerting you of that. So, I mean, there's some value in that. It is mattering, if you assessing whether or not it's worth the money you're paying for it. If you're comfortable for that peace of mind paying $10 a month, then there's value. If you review your credit history every 6 months or at least every year, and you're pretty on top of it, and you check your credit card statements each month, and you're really good about checking your checking account statements, you're probably doing a fine job yourself. With those credit cards, as long as you're looking at those statements, within that 60-day window, and you find a discrepancy, you can report it, and you're only going to be liable up to $50. More likely they probably won't even charge you that. And the banks, they don't really have to offer that kind of protection. They're not required to, but they will most of the time. Most of the banks I deal with, if you've been legitimately the victim of fraud, more than likely they're gonna reimburse you your money, unless they have reason to believe that you should have known better. But most of the time, they're pretty good. Again, the banks are good, the credit unions are pretty good, the credit card companies are good. You just have to stay on top of it. You have to be looking at your accounts. So monitoring your accounts, monitoring your credit history, those are some proactive steps that you need to take. Following these 6 steps right here, I mean, each one of these is awesome. I mean, if you follow these 6 steps, it's more than likely you won't be a victim of fraud. Particularly the last one, it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I remember a few years back, I had a friend of mine told me about this stockbroker friend of his and telling about this great investment in some penny stocks. And you know, it was years ago before I was really involved in fraud. And it sounded like a great investment. I could turn $300 into $20,000 within a month. It didn't happen. I have $20,000 in a company called Spoos that went nowhere. 20,000 shares. It was a pump and dump, you know. So it was. You know, I purchased each of these shares for a fraction of a cent with the belief that it would reach over a penny per stock. And so we can all fall victim to it. So if it sounds too, sometimes a little bit of greed. I hate to use that word. Sometimes it's greed. Sometimes it's those cruises. It's that personal desires. Somebody appeals to that, and sometimes our emotions overwhelm our intellect, and we make bad decisions, all of us. So follow those 6 rules, and I think you'll be pretty good. Monitor your bank accounts, your credit card history. I think you'll be good. And if you're a victim of fraud, report it, please.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate that. And Gilberto, yes, you're absolutely right. I really appreciate you mentioning elders in action, the personal advocates. Brianna just made a note to me to also let you know that we can help with the ordering of the credit report. So if it just seems overwhelming, give us a call. We might dispatch a personal advocate to help you, or we might help you over the phone, walk you through it. So give us a call. But this is a lot of information, as you've all said, and it's hard to kind of retain it or to know really what first step to take. But if you want to kind of revisit some of this information, we're happy to talk to you about it again. And also, she mentioned that the Federal Trade Commission has a checklist if identity may have been taken. So you can kind of go through this checklist. So there's information out there to help you think it through. You don't have to retain it all yourself.
Did you add something about that?
Yeah.
I need longer arms.
We need a new microphone.
Yeah, no, I forgot to point on that. So sometimes, like your email there, sometimes people, they're tempted with a scam, but they know it's a scam, but they're still, in a sense, you've been a victim of it. You know, somebody's tried to fish you for information. But they think, oh, you know, I feel stupid reporting it to police because police got better things to do, or APS got better things to do than some email. But there's places you can go, like Federal Trade Commission. You can report yourself as an identity theft victim there. And what they do is you think it's going nowhere, but it actually is going somewhere. There's IC3. It's the Internet Computer Crimes Center. It's run by the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice. And these are places you can go to, IC3.com or the FTC, or I know it's IC3, I forget what it's .gov or what. If you go to places like that, like FTC or the IC3, and you report like the email, you say, hey, on this date I got this email from this number and this email address. What the federal government is doing is they're databasing that information. They're looking for trends, and they're looking for, you know, is it one isolated incident, or is it 10,000 people who are being targeted with the same offender? And when they start getting those bigger, when they start piecing together a bigger part of the puzzle, and there's a bigger picture, I meant to say, then the feds can get involved and take a little more action with our partner agencies across the seas or across borders. And they do. I know, particularly with Canada, we have field offices. We are like Secret Service, FBI. Just the other day, I had a call from a Secret Service agent up in Montreal working with RCMP because an elderly person had been scammed via the phone and was wiring money down to Mexico. So it's not often we get to reach out and touch people across borders, but it is possible. So using sites like FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, or the IC3 to report those sort of scams is great, and it's useful. And sometimes they see trends, they'll even kick it back to us and say, hey, we're seeing that there's 20 people in your area who are being screened by this, and we think there's potentially a local connection. So even though it seems like it's going to go nowhere, it actually does get taken seriously. Yes, ma'am?
Do we have time for me to share one incident?
Yes, I'd like to.
I'd like to also mention that the senior center can be a resource for people. So if you forget to call them, you can recall me and I'll remind you the number or tell you the number, or we can do it together.
Great, thank you.
We also have the senior health insurance benefit. The Shiva people come and try to help people through some of the Medicare, Medicaid kind of stuff.
The senior centers, as you all know, are great resources for a variety of things. So I was going to actually mention that one of the aspects of potential victimization is isolation. And I wondered to ask this group, before we open it up to the group for stories and or questions, if this group, not isolated, coming to senior centers with their friends, if they have a friend or a neighbor who is isolated, what is one step that they could take to help that person?
Share one piece of information you learned here today with them. You know, give them a handout, give them the phone number for Elder Safe, you know, just check in on them, be a community.
Does your handout go up to Meals on Wheels?
Sometimes,
Sometimes.
not always. If you have a way to help me make that happen in this county, that would be great.
I would just say check in, see how they're doing. You know, the other program I would add is that through Washington County Aging and Veteran Services, if you think that that person perhaps lives independently and could use some other sources, resources to continue to live independently, there are social services agencies that can assist and help that person remain in their home. So I would just say, check in and see how they're doing, and give us a call if you think they need additional assistance.
Yes, I have a question. This is going back to the Social Security. You've always been told you never give that out, and yet you're saying give it. Which is it?
The only time I was saying is that if you are calling for a credit report, it goes by your Social Security number. So if you want a credit report, that's going to be the one time that, you know, but I know sometimes doctor's offices will ask for that information. I know that, I think I heard that the new
Medicare card is not going to have it anymore.
Yeah, the new Medicaid card's not going to have it anymore. So I think government's trying to put some other things in place so that your Social Security number is not so vulnerable.
Yeah, if you're carrying that card around in your wallet, stop doing that immediately. No, you don't. I will argue this point till I'm blue in the face.
The Medicare card.
You don't need it unless you're going to a new doctor's office. You don't need it. And if you go to your old doctor's office and they tell you that they need it, they're lying.
If you have an accident, you can still get help?
You can still get help. You do not need to carry that card around. Put it away. Put it in a safe place. Do not carry that in your wallet. And if you go to a doctor's office and you see on the form where it says they need your Social Security number, ask them why. Say, why, I see this is on the form, why do you need it? 99% of the time they're going to say, well, I don't know, it's on the form.
They're old forms.
Yeah. Do not carry that card and do not reveal that information unless somebody can give you a good, valid reason why they need it. Keep that number private, secure, safe, and locked away.
Gilberto, do you want to add anything about the friend? And then we'll open it up.
Okay. I just want to piggyback on that and share a personal experience with Macys. And so I'm buying something at Macys, and they had a sale, pretty good discount, but you gotta fill out a form to get their credit, something or other. Well, the form wants my Social Security number. I say, well, I want the discount, but I don't want to give you that number. I said, well, you can't get the deal unless you give us the number. This is Macys. And so that's what I mean when I say that there's a whole lot of stuff out there that we have to navigate that isn't right. What was the question?
That was great
Yeah,
addition to that. But do you want to say anything about one step they could take to help a friend?
Oh, yes, I did want to say something about that. During part of my career when I was in the world of work, I had the privilege of working with a number of volunteers, elder people, whose job it was to go and reach out to other elder people. Don't underestimate your effect as peer to that person who's isolated. They do need you, and they will respond to your friendly engagements with them. If I were building a program where I had the job of reaching out to them, I would make it a priority to get folks like you to go out and talk to them.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Yeah, as far as helping a friend, I would say if you believe that somebody's being abused or neglected or exploited and that person is not self-reporting, report on their behalf. You know, just call Adult Protective Services, call police. It's okay, you know, just bug. If you're not really sure, just call us, bug us. It's okay, we'll decide, we'll figure it out. You know, and if you're just, you know, if you suspect that there's something wrong, you know, just drop us a quick line. Say, hey, you know, I think there's something funny. Can you guys maybe go check on it? Can you do a little inquiry? You know, we have many of those kind of cases. And if you're concerned about the person finding out that you're the reporter, you report to APS, your name gets held confidentially for the most part. And you can just stress that too if that's a concern for you, if you want your name to be confidential. Just stress that, but don't be afraid to report your suspicion that a friend is being abused, neglected, or exploited. And let us, you know, even if you're not sure, you just think, that's fine, let us decide, let us figure it out. But just, we can't do anything until someone brings it to our attention. Yeah, so welfare checks. You know, if you think there's something wrong, and it's an evening or a weekend, you're like, well, Detective Brady's probably at home drinking a beer right now. Well, it's fine, call anyway, you know, because we have police officers 24/7. And if you think, you know, and they'll drive, you know, if your friend Sally or your friend John, you know, for whatever reason you're concerned about them, call it in, our patrol guys, they'll swing by there, they'll talk to them, they'll assess the situation, and if they think there's something more to it, they'll write a report, they'll pass it on to me, and then we'll get involved further with, probably with Adult Protective Services. So, yes sir.
What overseas countries are using scams more than most?
Canada is a pretty good one, Nigeria, China. Those are kind of I've seen money routed to Nigeria, Cyprus, and China are kind of the big ones, and also to Canada. Some down in Cuba and Puerto Rico and Mexico, but China I would say probably the biggest one, and then Canada.
So if you hear an accent, be aware of.
Yes, yeah. Just follow these rules here.
Because it's going to come out of the blue.
Yeah, these six rules. Yeah. I mean, it just goes into, like, if somebody has an accent, you know, if they have a Eastern European accent and they say they're from, you know, from Chicago or Illinois, or, you know, it might seem a little strange. You know, that's just one little red flag popping up. So just don't ignore the red flags. Listen to them.
If you're calling on a service though, chances are you're going to be routed to somebody overseas who's going to have an accent. So just bear that in mind. So these would just be calls that maybe come to you and it's out of the blue and it doesn't sound right. But I know for any sort of IT support or anything that I get, I always ask, you know, where are you? And it's a country that's way far away that's helping me. So just know that. Just because they have an accent doesn't mean that they're scamming you.
In particular, I wouldn't necessarily just use that as a caution because Canadians, well, they might say A more, but they sound very much like a lot of Americans. So, or anyway, yes, the questions now.
Yes, I'd like to ask about the do not call list. I often tell people, put me on the do not call list, and then they call again and call again. How can you stop that?
Sure. So if you open up that brochure, it's tip number 5, I believe, right in the middle. And it talks about how to sign up for the do not call list. And there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do it from your home phone by calling the number. I know, I'm just repeating this for, I know. I'll get to that part. So, so you can do it by calling from your home phone, or you can do it by signing up online. Word of caution, and this goes to your question, is this is not going to stop all of the calls. And the reason being is that most of these scammers that are calling you are overseas and they don't care about our laws. And they're using very sophisticated technology to avoid detection. So how do you handle those phone calls? You mentioned that you have repeatedly said to them, put me on the do not call list. I would caution you against doing that, and I'll tell you why. Have you ever gotten a phone call from Rachel at Cardholder Services? Yes. She's notorious. She's very bubbly, super energetic, and she says something very quickly, which is fascinating. She says, press 1 if you want to be removed from this list. Now, how many of you would press 1?
I did.
So you know what happens when you press 1? Your name and phone number is removed from that list. And your name and phone number are sold to 600, 200, 2,000 other lists. So just by pressing 1, even though you think the calls are going to stop, they're actually going to increase. And I'll tell you the reason. The reason is just by pressing 1, Rachel at Cardholder Services knows you're home during the day, you answer the phone, you listen to the message, and you engage, right?
Yeah.
So you are therefore a perfect victim just waiting to send money to them, right? So do not ask to be put on the do not call list. Don't ask to speak to an operator or supervisor. Don't blow a whistle into the phone. Don't talk German. Don't put the phone in front of the TV. Don't do anything other than hang up. That is my best piece of advice for you, because once they know you're there and you're engaged, man, they got you. So just hang up the phone.
That's really great to hear because, yeah, they're so smart. I would have done the same thing. So yes, another question.
So if you have a home phone, you have to dial from that home phone to the do not call list. If you have a cell phone, you also have to call in from your cell phone. That's the only way it'll take you off that list.
Oh, great. That's great reinforcement. Thank you.
To be able to put on a second number.
You can put on as many numbers as you want. You just have to call from that phone number. And that's all in tip number 5 in the brochure. If you have like 40 phone numbers and you don't want to spend time calling, you can also go online and do that. That might be faster.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I have a question on these 10 commandments.
No comment. What's that?
Pertaining to stopping the junk mail.
Yeah.
One of the things they ask for is for $1.
Oh.
And when they want $1, you got to give them some information. That's the very thing you're trying to stop.
I know. Doesn't that just irk you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's tip number 3?
Tip number 3.
Tip number 3 talks about reducing junk mail. And there's this association called the Direct Marketing Association. And they do this wonderful thing, right? They direct market to all of us, right? So big data, all this data that's in the cloud, everything you buy. When you go to Safeway and you swipe your Safeway card, somebody's tracking all of that, right? And they're figuring out that every Tuesday you buy Goldfish crackers and diapers. So you probably have a small toddler. So guess what starts coming in the mail? Coupons and marketing material for parents of small toddlers. I don't want that, right? I want it to stop. I can do that by contacting the Direct Marketing Association. But why I have to pay $1 is beyond me. So I'll tell you what, I said this to the AG, and she said, I agree. And so we had a meeting with the Direct Marketing Association. Their lobbyist came all the way from Washington, D.C., and I said, you know, I go around the state every day and I tell people not to pay money for anything like this. Why are you telling everybody they gotta pay $1? And he said, well, he kind of shuffled and was embarrassed and he didn't really have a good answer. So he got back to me a couple days later and he said, you know what, we'll waive that if we get people from Oregon that submit that. And especially if they're older.
So you have to write in, I'm old.
I don't really know how it works, to be honest, but I could just tell you that if you leave out the $1, they're probably not going to hound you. The real response from them was they didn't want to get into a situation where it was like, they claimed that there could be a concern that like people would be enrolling others or enrolling other like massive amounts of people at a time, and so they wanted to be sure that it was really from who it was really from. I don't know. I'm not a lobbyist, so I can't spin it the way he spun it. But the gist is that if you don't feel like paying the $1, I don't think it's gonna harm you.
Let's all try it.
Yeah, try it. Actually, that's good advice. Try it and let me know, because he said that he would accept them. So
I think we're gonna do it.
yeah, let me know. But that's the power of, you know, when something like that happens and you work for the Attorney General and you can call up those guys and say, hey, what's the deal? Knock it off. So I liked that. That was a good win, I felt like, for us.
There are a couple more questions, but I do, before people do start leaving, there are some fabulous refreshments at the back, which we've just been alerted to. So as we wrap up, please make your way to the back of the room and we'll stick around a little bit longer for any personal questions. So I'll touch someone there and then I'll come to you. So in the back, right there.
You didn't say anything about checks coming in the mail that are fraud checks.
Do you want to talk about that one?
So the checks, it depends on what the scam is. I mean, it might be a lottery scam. You might get some sort of check in the mail. The best thing to do, more than likely, I mean, yes, you can report it to us, but the best thing to do is just discard it, get rid of it. You can report it the different ways. You can report it to us, you can report it to the Federal Trade Commission, report it to IC3. But yeah, if you see a check in the mail and there's no reason you should have it, it's just the same as those phone calls or that lottery email. It's because what they're going to want you to do is they're going to want you to deposit that money into your account. Then they're going to want you to send them back some of the money. So just avoid it. Usually, all the times that I have looked into those checks, they always a lot of times you can notify us. Because it might say it's from the Great Bank of London, you know, and actually it's on this account and it's made payable to you, but actually it's a small business in New York and it's written on their account. So a lot of times people will call me up with those checks, and what I'll do is I'll just look at the routing number on the check. I can identify the bank. I call up the bank representatives and I say, hey, this person received this check. And most of the time when I call, the banks already know about it. They have, you know, they've already flagged that account as being fraudulent. But it's always nice just to call them and let them know that, hey, somebody's using this account number. You know, every once in a while they'll be like, oh yeah, we didn't know about that one. But that's a legitimate account, and they would have honored it for a certain period of time. So it doesn't hurt to report it. Just, I wouldn't expect that anybody's gonna get arrested for anything.
Yeah, would you like to ask a question?
I just wanted the water picked up behind Marcy's chair before she...
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you.
You know, the one last thing, just talking about mail, is that it's really important to shred your stuff. Shred stuff that's got your name, your address. Don't put your outgoing mail outside on the street with the flag up, because that's just makes it real easy for drive-by people to pick up mail with the flag on. And you know, I know that a lot of facilities have shredders. I think it wasn't too long ago we had a shred day here in Hillsborough. So really try to take advantage of those. And you know, last thing we want to do is make it easy for scammers to get checks that we've written to somebody else. So just kind of be very vigilant about your incoming and your outgoing mail.
Any other questions? Was there one? Oh.
Donations, I get a soft spot for certain people, you know, paralyzed veterans of America and things. And then my name gets sent to other people of similar thing, and I get flooded with that stuff.
Yeah, so the comment was about charities sharing your information and then flooding you for donations, and that unfortunately, there really isn't much we can do to stop that incoming mail from coming to you. Charities are exempt from a number of things, including the do not call list. Yes, do you want?
One other thing that I do is, if I get a post office box in New York or Carolina or somewhere, I just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. I will comment that Oregon's very unique in that we're one of just a handful of states that actually regulates charities. And you can read in your, I think it's up here on the table, we have another brochure called the Wise Giving Guide, and that has 10 tips for giving to good charities and for making sure your donation counts. Every year we issue a top 20 worst charities, and it talks about the percent that the charity actually spends on the cause, and it's really awful. Some of them spend less than 2% on the cause. And every year for the past 5 years that we've issued that top 20 list, none of the charities are from Oregon. So I like the idea of how when you get those in the mail and you see that they have a post office box in another state, you just toss it. Because I always tell people, give locally. It's very clear after looking at that list that the bad guys are outside the state. And so the Attorney General looked at that list and she said, enough is enough. I'm going to introduce a piece of legislation that says if you don't spend a certain amount on the actual cause, you have to tell Oregonians that they can't take a state tax deduction for that. And that passed about 1.5 years ago. And so that's the threshold's pretty low. But gosh, some of these charities we were interacting with were spending 1.7%. That's horrific. Where else is this money going? So pick up that Wise Giving Guide on your way out. Lots of good tips in there.
Thank you very much. It sounds like we've answered your questions, and thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much to the panel for being here today and sharing your expertise and wisdom. And I hope that everybody will, oh, wait, one more question.
I had a friend once who was a con artist, and he said the only way, he said, I can con anyone if they're greedy. He says, con men work on greed, that you are going to get something for nothing or you're going to get more than you put in.
Right, so con men work on greed, that feeling that you might get something for nothing, and back to the resources that they've shared here, if it sounds too good to be true, and listen to your gut, as also was mentioned up here. Thank you again for letting us be here today and spending this time with you.
Okay, let me get